Some disasters are televised. Some become global scandals. And then, there are the ones so terrifying, so catastrophic, that governments will do anything to make them disappear. This is the story of one of those disasters. One that left hundreds of thousands exposed to deadly radiation, poisoned entire regions of Russia, and was buried under layers of lies for decades. This is the story of the Kyshtym disaster, and the Soviet cover-up that almost succeeded. Welcome back to the Unknown Archive. Today, we unearth one of the most radioactive secrets ever concealed by the Iron Curtain. Catastrophe that rivals Chernobyl, but was never supposed to be known. In the heart of the Ural Mountains, in a place the Soviet Union never marked on maps, there existed a city that officially didn't exist, Chelyabinsk 40. Later renamed Chelyabinsk 65, and eventually known by its true name, Ozyorsk. This was no ordinary city. Built from scratch during the early Cold War, it was a closed-off enclave, a hidden nerve center of the USSR's atomic ambitions. Entire families lived behind barbed wire fences, under constant surveillance, forbidden from leaving or even corresponding with the outside world. Entry and exit were tightly controlled. If you were born there, chances are you'd die there too, without ever being officially recognized by your own government. The reason for all the secrecy? The Mayak Production Association, one of the USSR's most important and dangerous nuclear facilities. Behind reinforced concrete and layers of classified documentation, Mayak's reactors were working day and night to produce weapons-grade plutonium for the Soviet nuclear arsenal. This was the birthplace of bombs, forged in silence. To the outside world, nothing was there. No city, no workers, no nuclear facility. It was as if the land had been erased from reality. But inside the zone, a ticking time bomb. Between 1949 and 1956, Mayak had already been quietly poisoning the landscape. Without proper storage protocols, the plant discharged millions of curies of radioactive waste directly into the Teka River, a vital water source for dozens of rural villages downstream. Peasants who bathed, drank, and fished from the river began to fall ill. Children were born with deformities. Crops began to fail. Livestock died off. And all the while, the authorities insisted everything was normal. It wasn't. The people of the southern Urals were unknowingly becoming subjects of one of the largest and cruelest radiation experiments in human history. But the most devastating blow came in 1957. On September 29th, deep inside the Mayak facility, a cooling system for a radioactive waste storage tank failed. The tank contained around 80 tons of highly radioactive nitrate acetate solution, one of the most toxic byproducts of plutonium production. As temperatures rose unchecked, the contents of the tank became unstable. What followed was one of the largest non-nuclear explosions in human history. The resulting blast was estimated to be equivalent to 70 to 100 tons of TNT. The explosion ripped through the facility, ejecting a radioactive plume more than a kilometer into the atmosphere. A toxic mushroom cloud drifted northeast, contaminating a swath of land more than 20,000 square kilometers wide, now known as the East Ural Radioactive Trace. But here's the catch. Because there was no nuclear detonation, no actual chain reaction, the Soviets had an opportunity. They could deny, they could delay, they could bury the truth under a mountain of silence. And that's exactly what they did. Villagers living near the blast zone saw the sky erupt in a silent flash. They felt the ground tremble. Some described a burning metallic scent in the air. Others watched livestock collapse in the fields. But no official explanation came. No sirens. No evacuation orders. Just silence. Days passed. Then weeks. And all the while, a deadly blanket of radiation was quietly settling over fields, forests, rivers, and towns. Invisible, odorless, merciless, people kept working, children kept playing, mothers kept cooking meals with contaminated water. They didn't know they had already begun to die. Rather than inform the world or even their own people, the Soviet authorities launched an unprecedented cover-up. Entire villages were secretly bulldozed. Families were relocated in the dead of night. Doctors were told to diagnose radiation sickness as vegetative vascular dystonia. And all while the KGB ensured no information leaked outside the closed zone. To the rest of the Soviet Union and to the West, nothing had happened. No Soviet newspaper reported the incident. No scientists were allowed to speak. Those who tried faced imprisonment, or worse, the victims, silenced. The perpetrators, protected. And the truth, buried deep beneath layers of radioactive dust and political fear. But you can only bury a secret so deep. In the late 1970s, Soviet dissident and biologist Boris Medvedev smuggled out documents and testimonies, blowing the lid off the cover-up. His claims were met with skepticism, until satellite data, declassified CIA files, and survivor accounts began to corroborate his story. Still, it would take until the fall of the Soviet Union in the 1990s for the Russian government to finally acknowledge what had happened. By then, it was far too late. Over 270,000 people were exposed to dangerous levels of radiation from the Kyshtym disaster and Mayak's other toxic practices. Many suffered cancers, genetic mutations, and shortened lifespans. The Teka River remains one of the most polluted bodies of water in the world. Entire stretches of land around Ozyorsk are still uninhabitable. To this day, the full death toll remains unknown, perhaps unknowable, because records were destroyed, victims were ignored, and evidence was erased. But the legacy of Kyshtym lives on. The Kyshtym disaster wasn't just a Soviet failure. It was a template for how authoritarian regimes handle catastrophe. Deny, distract, destroy evidence, and above all, control the narrative. What's chilling is how often this playbook has been used. From Chernobyl to other black-budget operations around the world, secrecy has a body count. And the scariest part? The technologies developed at Mayak and the secrecy surrounding it may still be in use today. Some even believe the Kyshtym event wasn't a simple accident, but the result of a covert weapons experiment gone horribly wrong. So what was the Kyshtym disaster? A tragic accident? A calculated risk? Or a glimpse into a hidden world where human life is expendable for the sake of power? What's clear is this: the Soviets built an invisible city to wage invisible war. And when it all went wrong, they made the victims vanish too. But the radiation didn't vanish. It lingered. It mutated. It told the truth in whispers, from the bones of the dead to the poisoned waters of the Teka. Thanks for watching The Unknown Archive. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and remember, some disasters are forgotten, others are erased, but this one still glows in the dark.